Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. So on Monday, we had a little chat regarding the big reveal of the Scouring series last week, with its first novel announced, The Ashes of the Imperium. And we discussed what we could possibly expect, what we could learn from the cover art, the arguing Roboute and Rogal, the figures that are present within the room. And there was one point in the conversation that I noted Raldoron standing amongst the Primarchs, obviously representing his legion due to the loss of the Angel. Quite a sad little detail when you notice it. And of course, that's had me thinking ever since. What if Sanguinius was there? What if he did survive the heresy? Now no, not if he had defeated Horus, but say everything worked out the same, yet somehow the Angel survived his wounds. Or perhaps more likely, he simply never found his traitor brother aboard the Vengeful Spirit before the Emperor. How might that affect the Scouring we know, the series we have to come? Obviously, we don't know how the series is going to play out exactly yet. Just what lore may be subtly changed from the Scouring that has been established over the years. However, we can have a logical guess from the established facts of the Scouring that we know, and from the very image that we have teased on the Ashes of Imperium cover. Now, the first thing that would be undoubtable is that Sanguinius's grief would be an easy match for Rogal's at least. The Angel was giving everything he had to ensure his father won, prepared to give his life. And so I think he would have been truly grief-stricken to see what had become of the Emperor, even in this so-called victory. And I think that Sanguinius would feel like he had failed the Emperor, taking it particularly hard. So as much as the Imperium would need a bright and positive Angel, I think it's far more likely they'd have one struggling to come to terms with it all himself. Now, that said, there is a slight added bonus here though, in that the other Primarchs wouldn't have the grief of the Angel's loss combined with their fathers. Because don't for 1 second overlook that. Don't think that all the grief post-heresy was regarding their father. Yes, it absolutely was the focus, the dominating aspect, but the loss of Sanguinius too absolutely compounded it. He was always a very unifying presence amongst his kin, a symbol for the Imperium to look to. So having Sanguinius alive, even as sorrowful as he may be, would have still been a big boost to everyone else. And on that note, surprisingly, having Sanguinius around may well have complicated matters in regards to the new structure of the Imperium, as it's inescapable for him to be a symbol, a beacon for humanity to look to. Yes, the Emperor is technically still alive, still the Emperor, but the running of the Imperium now falls to the Lord Commander and to the High Lords. And we know Guilliman will assume the role of Lord Commander from Rogal, as of yet to be seen whether through Rogal's choice or something else. And Guilliman does undoubtedly make sense. He is the best Primarch at running things, for want of a better term, administration, structuring, procedures, stability. He is the wise choice for what the Imperium needs, considering the Emperor is still technically the head. And I think Sanguinius would have supported this decision, knowing Roboute's talent and abilities. But there is a very real possibility in my mind that it would have been Sanguinius who would have been looked to for that role, simply for who and what he is. I have no doubt he would have wanted no part of it, still sick to his stomach at the memory of Imperium Secundus. Even more so now because of what has happened to the Emperor, the magnifying of his own guilt. But I think there would have been those regardless who wanted the Angel as Lord Commander, to be that symbol for the Imperium. With the Emperor's silence, who better to be the figurehead of his rule than the son who shared his golden aspects the most? Who better than the Angel? Guilliman was undoubtedly what was best for the Imperium's health, but Sanguinius would have been what was best for the Imperium's soul. If there are no orders in place, contingencies left behind by Malcador to follow, well then, I think the baseline mortals of humanity would have definitely argued for the Angel. And if the switch from Rogal to Guilliman is contentious, not by choice, well then, having Sanguinius present may well have resulted in some Primarchs requesting it be him instead. Again, the only Primarch everyone could agree on. I mean, let's not forget, if L. Johnson is about when the Lord Commander switch is made, there's no way he would be happy with it being Guilliman. They may have learnt to work together, but the same grudges and mistrust remained. So Sanguinius's grief would have been even further compounded, with him most likely being drawn into the Lord Commander debate and situation, against his will. However, let's say that was ironed out. Sanguinius categorically refused the requests and managed to convince the others it should be Roboute. How then would the Angel have responded to Guilliman's Codex Astartes? Well, considering the flaw of the Red First he had been desperately trying to hide, even from his father, I don't see any alternative other than he would have been completely and utterly against it. Fearful, having his son spread out across the galaxy in chapters, making it harder to conceal the flaws in his bloodline. And so this would have been a big problem, with Sanguinius being adamantly on Rogal's side of the debate. And it makes it hard to see how the situation would have been resolved, knowing how close to civil war Roboute was willing to take it. Would Sanguinius have revealed the flaw in confidence to Guilliman? I'm not sure. He had a good relationship with Roboute, but I just find it hard to believe, considering he even hid it from Horus Lupercal, who was by far his most beloved brother, who only found out about Sanguinius's secret by following him, unknown to the Angel. But maybe Sanguinius would have told Guilliman, feeling he had no other choice. We'll simply never know here. But where would it have gone then, even if he did? We know Guilliman wouldn't have changed his mind. Or would he? He listened to Vulcan and allowed the Salamanders to not have any successors. However, that was because they were so small. We know the Blood Angels, despite being at the Siege of Terror, are in fact split into several chapters during the second founding. So I don't foresee any way Guilliman could have allowed them an exception. So it's real interesting to wonder about here, how this would have all played out, because I just can't see Sanguinius going along with it. And let's not forget as well that this was a time the new Inquisition was going nuts on prosecuting perceived taint, so Sanguinius would have been dealing with that as well. And so, actually, when you think about it, far from Sanguinius being around making things easier, It actually could have well made the Scouring years even harder in a way, which is crazy to think about. But when you look at the things that transpire, it really could have. Again, he would have surely been dragged into the Lord Commander argument, with many wanting him as the symbol of the Emperor, now that the Emperor was silent. And then the Codex would have surely caused him a real problem to deal with, knowing how concerned he was about his gene line. And let's not forget about the growing Ecclesiarchy. No, they wouldn't have had the martyred sacrifice of the angel to venerate, but they would have had a walking, talking golden angel still alive. And you can only imagine the amount of worshipping Sanguinius would have had to deal with, the amount of appeals from the figures within the Ecclesiarchy and its rapidly growing power base. So, unbelievably in a strange way, maybe it's a good thing Sanguinius wasn't around to see the survival of the Imperium, its rapid slide from the Golden Age to the Grim Dark, as he most likely would have found his already grieving heart only breaking further. But as always everyone, what do you think? How do you think the Scouring may have been different had Sanguinius survived the heresy? Like me, do you feel he would have undoubtedly been drawn into the Lord Commander debate? That with the Emperor's silence, he was simply too much of a symbol, a rallying point for the Imperium? And how do you feel he would have handled the Codex Astartes? Like me, do you feel he would have undoubtedly opposed it, simply out of fear of his gene line secret? Or do you think he may have tried something else, like appealing to Roboute and going along with it? And how do you feel he would have been handled by the growing Ecclesiarchy? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.